I mean, just this next hour. Nice shot. I love it.
Yes.
Okay, and I
Okay,
think we're ready.
great. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Natasha Brofsky and I'm broadcasting from New York City, so you might hear a little bit of background noise because my apartment looks over Broadway. Um, I want to welcome you all wonderful cellists to our CelloBello cello chat here. You just produced this wonderful video in support of Ukrainians and Ukrainian musicians. Um, this video is going to support the Ukrainian Classical Music Support Fund. And it's a really meaningful way on this Independence Day for Ukraine to support our colleagues there. There's a wonderful tradition of cellists, as we all know, as humanitarians. We have the wonderful example of Pablo Casals, who had a very close relationship with the United Nations, and who protested the actually, he never played in the countries that supported the Franco regime for 33 years. And then, of course, Rostropovich playing on the Berlin Wall as it was coming down. I'll never forget that, actually, when he sat there and played Bach. You guys are continuing that tradition. So I just want to open it up to you. And maybe, Paul, you could start and just talk about how this idea came to be and how you see the role of cellists as humanitarians.
Sure. Thanks, Natasha. Yes, well, putting on my hat as CelloBello founder just for a second, I mean, we are an educational website, not a political one, but as we have a public platform, there are human rights issues, societal injustices, particularly those in the classical music field, for example, that concern racial, gender, ethnic diversity, that the website is devoted to in terms of influencing positive change. Um, so, in terms of the Ukraine, like so much of the world, we watch it in horror and in sorrow and in outrage as human beings, and we want to help. Um, I got, I don't know how many people watching were able to hear the 1 p.m. Discussion with the musicians that were on Zoom with us from Kiev, but I got really emotional listening to those wonderful people, and certainly anything that we can do to support our musical brothers and sisters in Ukraine fits our own personal mission and values, but also the website's mission and values. You mentioned Pablo Casals, and so I am old enough that I actually, just personally, I think that he had something to do with shaping my values. As a kid, just starting to play the cello, my parents had his recordings in the house, but they weren't musicians, but he was a hero to them because of his humanitarian stance. And I admired that, and I think somewhere I began to understand that, you know, musicians, we do have a voice. We have our concerts. We now have our YouTube. So, in other words, we have a platform, and I think we're not only musicians, but we're members of society. And I think um, that much more than when I was a kid, I think today that today's musicians have an awareness of social values and social responsibilities that probably didn't exist when I was growing up. I mean, we basically stayed in our practice room and practiced all day, and that was sort of as far out as our brains went. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but uh, it's exciting today that there is interchange and awareness in the musical community. And hearing these people in Kyiv last hour just about brought me to tears. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful and meaningful discussion. I think one of the things that struck me that was sort of universal in what they were speaking about, but also what I've heard you guys speak about when you were working on the video and thinking about it, is that sense that the first reaction is almost like we're powerless until we realize actually how much power we do have as musicians to do something about it. Maybe Zlatomir, you could talk a little bit of, I've noticed like in your programming, for example, that you're really embracing the idea of social change and inclusiveness and awareness. I don't know, could you talk about this project in relation to that and how you see it, your role?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks everyone for having me, and I also want to extend my thank you to CelloBello and Paul Katz for inviting me to be a part of this project. It was really fascinating and wonderful to see how the videos from coming from all around the world came together to create this final music video that we had together of this folk song. And I was just so moved and touched by everyone who participated in it and their playing and what they gave to it. I think that as musicians, we of course our service is to the art, but always music has existed kind of in this historical context where it's always been very connected to text, and it's always been very connected to extra musical ideas. And for example, even looking at the importance of an anthem to a nation's sense of identity, it's kind of an example of the power that music has to unite people behind ideas. And so when I approach programming, I like to think about the way that those things intertwine, and also being I'm an American, but my family comes from all around the world, Europe and Asia, and I don't feel that I feel like I belong to many different parts of the world. So I definitely feel like I belong to Eastern Europe in a sense. My mother is from Bulgaria, so this was just a really meaningful project for me in that sense, bringing together this international community of cellists to say something. So.
Thank you, Zlatomir. And maybe, Petro, you could speak to, as a Ukrainian, what this project has meant to you and how you see your role as a Ukrainian living in Norway. I know you've been really active in supporting your countrymen.
Well, I try to stay calm because I'm very emotional right now. Of course, it meant a lot when I got a message from Robert and Paul about participation. Timing couldn't be worse. Middle of summer and everything, but I had no doubts I have to do it. I really wanted to do it, and I had just put aside everything else and just participate because I knew it can help me to do what I have been doing for some months now, and just to get this opportunity to say something to people around and to have opportunity to give some strong message to people you probably not always have a chance to. And of course, again, thanks Paul, thanks everyone in the project. It means a lot. What else I have been thinking that we are presenting US, Ukraine, Norway, but I think we have opportunity to talk to people all over the world, to cellists, and I hope not only to cellists. So that was opportunity for me. And I hope we will be able to continue to communicate with people. And of course, mostly through our playing. That's our main language. And I know we are getting some responses. I have been talking about this project a lot to my friends, to my family back in Ukraine, to my colleagues. And I got support, and I'm happy I'm doing it. And I have to say to Ukrainians, congrats with Independence Day. This is probably one of the most important celebration we had in definitely our 30 years history now after Soviet Union collapse, but I think it probably even in 300-year history, maybe in 1,000. We have to stay strong. We have to do what we do. It looks like we are doing well, but of course we cannot do it alone. So we need some help, support, mental, emotional, and with military equipment, with everything else. And we are standing for us. We are standing for our freedom, independence, but we are standing for the rest of the world as well, because everyone is aware if Ukraine is collapsing, shape of Europe will collapse, and it might happen with the whole world. So we have to stand together. We have to keep standing. I suggest everyone to listen to this conversation, which happened 2 hours ago with Kyiv Contemporary Music Days and the Fund. It's very emotional, very informative in terms of culture, Ukraine, what we are standing for, what we are struggling with. So I don't want to use time for that. Really go and listen. I hope it's available on YouTube, and then you will have opportunity to support as well. I have my friends, very close friends, who is fighting on the front line, musicians, who I'm trying to stay in touch every day. Not every day they're able to answer, and it's sometimes very scary. But they are standing, and I hope they will stand until we win this war. So thanks for support, everyone. Do as you can, and we are doing as good as we can.
Let me just jump on that for 1 second. I mean, what you said is very true and very powerful. And I just want to say an important reason that we're doing this is actually to be able to support Ukraine. And so those of you that are, whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on YouTube, there's a link there where you can go and donate. That's so important. So I hope that all of these efforts, all of these words inspire people to go and give, because they're basically fighting for all of us, and they really need our help.
Yes, I just want to add the name of the organization is the Ukrainian Classical Musicians Support Fund. That's the fund that we're supporting today with your video and with our conversation. And they are helping with all manner of help to musicians in Ukraine with food, but also with finding instruments. Many of them had to leave their instruments behind when they fled, and so it's a really wonderful organization, and that is who we're supporting today. Elena, I wanted to bring the conversation to you, and I know that you've spoken eloquently about at first feeling, how asking yourself how you could help as a Russian-born person, and I'm sure many people are in your situation, and so maybe you could speak a little bit about how this project has related to you and what you want to say about Ukraine.
Yeah, ever since the war started, I was thinking, what could I do besides donating, and I'm not so good with words, as I mentioned, but I know I speak through music, and cello is my voice. So when Mike Block, who is not here and who made an arrangement, called me and asked me to join this project, he told me about it. I immediately said yes, and I saw that's my way of also reminding that this is still happening, because I feel like people start to forget or get used to. And so I feel like we constantly have to do something to remind people that the war is still happening and that we still have to support. And I watched the previous conversation with people from Kyiv Contemporary Music Days, and that was so emotional, and it even added to, I was so glad I participated. And actually, I also started to compose something based on Ukrainian folk song, a different one, but it's just, I also felt still powerless, and I wasn't able to create much. So that was also important to participate in this project, that it was arranged, and there was a big platform from which we could share it. And there's a fund, please donate. I already shared with some of my friends and they told me they donated, which makes me very happy. So whoever's listening, please send a donation. There's a link on the bottom of the video, right? As I remember. Yeah, so thank you so much for having me, and I really want to show my support to Ukrainian people. And yeah, it's very emotional and
Thank you, Elena.
hard. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And I wanted to bring the discussion back to our wonderful colleagues from the Kiev Contemporary Music Days. Daria talked about being curious, encouraged us all to be curious about other cultures. And I know in my own musical life that has been a huge part of being a cellist is being able to travel and meet other people and play together. And no matter where we are as cellists, we can play together even if we don't speak the same language, although we speak the language of cello and music. So I wanted to throw that back at you guys, you know, the sense of how do we keep that curiosity and engagement, and as you say, not to forget what's going on in the world, but to continue our art in the face of what's going on. You know, Paul, do you have some more words of wisdom on that topic?
Well,
You've been a lifelong person of inspiration to many of us.
I thought you were going to ask me to say something, but not ask for words of wisdom. Not sure I have any of those. But no, I think the point is that music is our language, and we use our music to help improve the world. You know, I mean, music itself has its own reason to be. It's a human need, and it can provide. I can't even imagine. I don't know what it is to have missiles flying over my head and bombs dropping and people dying, and I can't. It's just unimaginable to put myself in these people's shoes. But I know when the World Trade Center went down, or at moments like this, you know, just for personal solace, I was able to go to my instrument and play, and music has some kind of comforting or healing ability, and we can do the same playing for others, and using music in that way. And another thing that the people in Kyiv stress today, which I realize as I listen to them, is so important. They asked us several times, please play music by Ukrainian composers, please. I mean, this is their identity, and their pride. And Ukraine has such a rich cultural history, and this is a time that we can all, it's another way that we can support by doing that. So I'm sort of renewed in that way to see, to look for Ukrainian compositions and Ukrainian artists, and seeing how we can help in that way.
We have a comment from on the chat here. It'd be nice if we as citizens of the world could socially evolve away from nationalism and towards citizens of the globe, but we don't have to give up our cultural identity as we act on behalf of all people. And it seems like a very important point that we can be involved in the cultural conversation without it evolving into a nationalistic kind of rhetoric.
The diversity of cultures is maybe the greatest beauty of the world, and as musicians we can enjoy so many different cultures. Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And Vladimir, I don't know, you've been traveling around the world this summer, and maybe you could speak to that, how you're seeing people responding to music in general and responding and also more specifically to the conflict in Ukraine and how that's affected your concertizing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I really love what you said about curiosity, and I think that, you know, I guess you could call them the destructive impulses or the confrontational impulses that sort of we see leading to war. They arise in the absence of curiosity, I think. They arise when we become uninterested in asking questions about whatever it is we perceive as different or threatening. And I think in music, especially in chamber music collaboration, our practice in that sense is a constant. It's a constant practice of curiosity, trying to see from our collaborators' points of view, asking about new pieces of music to play, new styles, new ways of thinking. So within our art, within the music that we play, I think we embody what it is in many ways that we need to feel together. Yeah, that's all I would say.
I know, Petro, you have a history of playing in the string quartet, and maybe you could speak to your experience in Ukraine with that, and how that developed, how that influenced your way of thinking about being a musician in the world.
Well, that's true. Playing in string quartet was my probably thing which kept me going on, and it became my main goal in my career as well in Ukraine when we were studying. So we found a group of musicians who was able to put some time and sacrifice some extra time to develop something, and we were curious. We didn't have much surrounding in this chamber music, but the music just made everything, you know. And we as musician professionals, we very often play pieces which were played thousands, 10,000 times before us. But this curiosity, what I can do with these notes, you know, these notes, it's just a mass, it's just a suggestion what you can do, what you are able to do with it. No one here is going to play better than someone else. We are not in sports, you know, but we are trying just to go through these music notes and experience, first of all, ourselves, something in it, and then try to send this message out. And especially being playing in the string quartet, I got this really, really strong experiences. Like when you're really communicating with audience, when you're really kind of out of this world, you know, it's really difficult to explain it. I cannot really. It's on a metaphysical level, but you are communicating kind of out of this time. Sometimes you are playing Shostakovich 8, when you're playing solo, and time just stops. And in some moments, you just see a look at audience and try to see what they're experiencing. And this is just amazing state of mind. So I never, not very often before I experienced in quartet, like I was playing solo. It was a lot of nice moments, but I never got this experience. So that's why I decided to have it as my main profession, my main goal in career. Of course, when we talked earlier with the guys, I told I had some health issues as well, so I had to stop it. So I didn't play cello for 4 years, and then came back, and I started to develop back myself. I'm trying to think about as well. Elena mentioned that we have to keep up idea of supporting Ukraine, because it can really disappear from the press, from TV, and less people will be aware of it. We have to keep it in shape. We as a like, I can talk about it like freedom or independence in Ukraine. We were fighting as Ukrainians for generations for the freedom, and 30 years ago, in 91, 31 years ago, we kind of got it. Because of the collapse of Soviet Union, even a lot of people, politicians and people from the cultural society, poets and writers, they sacrificed a lot. But as a nation, we sort of got it. And probably that's why we didn't make so much effort to keep it. We were not aware that now we are actually sacrificing, a lot of Ukrainians sacrificing life. And what I hope that this time we will not get it, we will win it. And then we will win this freedom and independence. We will be able to keep it for forever. I really hope it. And it's the freedom, we as a musicians have one another thought. When we are getting to some sort of shape level, we are not having it. To be able just to keep it, we have to work hard. And if we even want to develop it further, we have to work even harder. We know it as an instrumentalist. It's not something we are bought and we have it. The day we got it, we are starting to lose it. And I am thinking about freedom and about independence. We have to think in the same way. We have to work every day to be able to keep it. And then we have to work even harder to be able to develop as a nation. And not just keep culture, but just develop it. And going back to, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. I'm emotional. But going back to a question about curiosity, that's one of the things which kept me going on in different part of my life. That's one of the reasons I ended up in Norway, because I was very curious about different culture, and I was in love with Norwegian, Scandinavian culture, folk music, sound, and everything. So this is definitely, I would suggest for other people, just discover something every day. And that's what keeps us alive mentally as well, and emotionally.
It's difficult to speak after Petro because he, it's so wonderful to hear him, talk with wisdom and passion, But to go back to your original question about the string quartets just for a second, since I spent my life as a quartet member, and quartets have this image, maybe with some truth to it, that they're always fighting and not getting along. And you know, the old joke about a string quartet, you know, that it's a four-way marriage with all of the bad stuff and none of the good stuff. Um, yeah.
So
So,
much true.
but, but what I wanted to say was, and a lot of my colleagues found this a little corny, but I used to think in the days that I was playing quartets, and I was in a quartet that got along very well, I must say, but still, there's just like a marriage. There is strife. There's tensions, and I used to say to myself, I always thought of a string quartet as a microcosm of society and of the world. I thought if four people that have a common love for something and common goals cannot get along, what chance is there for countries? What chance is there for the world? And so at difficult moments, I used to say this to myself. I'd say, I need to make this work. And I actually feel like the interdynamics of how people relate in a quartet and exist and coexist. I think there are truths and messages in that I actually think, you know, as a quartet player, I love to go and talk to corporate retreats or go and talk to governments. I think quartet players have a certain wisdom, and I don't know if it's ever going to get up to the governmental level, but I think that's the hope for the world.
I would say as musicians, the sort of idea of listening is such an important one for us,
Oh,
obviously,
beautiful.
right?
Yeah, beautiful.
And listening to each other's point of view and listening to and thinking about how we frame questions and answer them. I played in a piano trio for many years, so I would argue, Paul, that equally, but actually in the piano trio you have this sort of big monster of the piano, and then you have the string players trying, the cellists trying to compete with this. So there's some analogies there we could draw, but
much more representative of the world. You had a bully in your group.
right,
Yes.
there you go.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's this idea of listening and framing questions and how to hear, not listen, but actually hear what your colleagues are saying, and yes, we can be an example. And I think, you know, in all the forms that we do our music, that's something musicians share, this idea of listening. Elena, I wonder.
I just can
Yeah,
add
please,
to this.
Petra.
Your idea to listen and to hear what people say, that's my idea. When I hold some kind of speeches, I did it first time in my life when war started. I had to do it, not had to, but I had to will to do it. So my message was, I didn't come to speak, but I came to be heard. And that's a reason in the way of communicating, because a lot of people who can talk, but if no one is hearing you, so it's a waste of time. So that's I'm aware of being able to talk to people and be heard.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, and words and in words and in music. Yeah. And Elena, what is your experience as living in different countries and this idea of listening? How does that?
Oh, actually, I didn't. I hope I'm not bringing a conversation away, but I just participated in a global musician workshop. It was 2 weeks ago with 60 participants from 25 countries that actually Mike Block is directing. And that was just an amazing experience, hearing different languages, different musical languages, because people are from different countries, and have it was not classical, Western classical music. It was Chinese music, music from Lebanon, also country music, all the different styles and different countries. So, and I feel like that was also an important, like it helped me. So it's kind of building bridges between the different cultures. And that was a very powerful experience. And we also formed different groups and performed together. Absolutely out of the comfort zone, playing music of a different culture with instruments of the like cultures from all around the world. Yeah, so I feel like that's also important for musicians to be able to build bridges, as I mentioned, between all of us. I just didn't want to bring it too far away from Ukraine because we still want to talk about that. Yeah. As I mentioned again, my talking skills are not my strong.
No, that's it's about hearing and listening to what the spirit of what you're saying, and you speak so eloquently. Vladimir, have you worked with some Ukrainian musicians or played some Ukrainian music recently that you want to share with us?
Sure. Well, everywhere I've been, I've encountered people from Ukraine and amazing Ukrainian musicians, talented people. Actually, just a couple days ago, I played a concert with a Ukrainian clarinetist, and also encountering musicians from Russia and the Russian communities overseas. Everyone I've met has been very, in support of Ukraine, and it's also been heartening to see that, for the most part, the musical community is coming together on this very important issue. So, yeah.
I was very moved. I wonder, Petro, if you maybe have more experience with this. I didn't know much Ukrainian music before, but I heard some at the festival Yellow Barn where I am in the summer. I heard some Silvestrov songs, so incredibly beautiful, and they're all sort of, the dynamic range is sort of mezzo piano to pianissimo.
He's amazing,
and it was
he's
so
genius.
And talk about listening. It was like it sort of sucked you in and made you listen in such a profound. It was almost like listening to someone speak to your inner thoughts. It was really quite moving.
He's a genius, of course, and I suggest everyone to listen. And this world is harsh for some amazing composers. It's impossible to be played, and that's our responsibility as musicians to take these composers, and play if we can, or just promote if we can. And it just happened with Silvestrov. He was extremely important composer while I was studying and working in Kiev. Quite difficult to perform. He's very sonoristic. It sounds very simple in a way, but it's quite difficult to perform. And he is a quite special guy. He likes to be presented at the rehearsals, and he's extremely precise in what he wants to do. So at that time he was quite popular. At least I knew him while I was studying, but question of getting out to be played, that was question. And I don't want to go very long in history and in politics especially, but Ukrainian culture was not very well presented in Soviet time. It was kind of little bit pushed down. And of course, that's a way of pressure. If like Soviet time, I remember I grew up in Soviet time. I was going to school. I was studying. I even started conservatory in Soviet time, and then I went in 1986 when Chernobyl exploded. So I start my years in Kiev, sorry. So it was, of course, Gorbachev came to power, and we started to talk about glasnost and perestroika, but it was Soviet Union. And 2 years I spent in military. In 1989 I came back, and it was quite a change just during these 2 years. So in Soviet time, Ukrainian composers were pressed, especially modern ones, you know. And at that time, I was thinking even how this composer can just get out. And if you remember story about the Arvo Pärt, it was as well question of getting out. And I think one of the main roles in this, Manfred Eicher, if you know the ECM record label, he was producing this composer, and he was really promoting Arvo Pärt. And I was really crossing my fingers that he will get across the Silvestrov. And then it came first CD, came Requiem, came Meta Music, came Simple Songs. And then I knew he will be famous. It was no question anymore. And I remember when I was in Norway, at Chamber Music Festival, and one of the quartets, I don't want to be wrong, I think it was Arditi quartet, but they played Beethoven, they played other stuff, and they played piece of Silvestro. I was crying, you know, that was the only piece of Ukrainian composer was played. And I came after concert and talked to them, and I just told them thanks a lot for playing Ukrainian music. And reaction was speech. They were speechless. They were so happy to hear this because they like music a lot and they wanted to play, but it was nice for them to see that music is met. Actually, someone is appreciating it. They didn't know I was Ukrainian. I told them, of course, afterwards. But anyway, playing Ukrainian music, and it's a lot of I'm discovering Ukrainian music nowadays. I remember Kiva as a composer. I didn't listen to him much, but now I have listened, and it's really hit me. And it's so much music. Guys talking about in conversation before, Ukrainian societies, musical societies, was very clever to put catalogs of the music of Ukrainian composers and share it, scores. So I think they have been, they will be sharing something under the video. And if someone needs from Cello Society, just ask, because there is a lot of music. I don't know if just cello music, but whatever. They are putting out for free, maybe for some donations sometimes, and just ask for music. They are willing to share. We need to support, and we need to keep this culture. We need, because the first thing the aggressor is destroying, it's the humans and the culture. The culture, it's we were struggling for generations to keep it up, but I'm happy we did it. I'm happy we did it. We have a folk music, we have a language, we have a everything, you know. You just dig in, you know, and I'm really happy we managed to keep it, and we are gonna do it.
Paul, I know Mike Block, who also participated in this project, was very involved with Yo-Yo Ma and the Silk Road project, and he was the person that arranged the music on the anthem and the folk song in the video. And since he isn't able to come, maybe could you speak a little bit about how you guys chose what to play and how that came about and Mike's role in that?
Sure. It actually started I guess if this is the 6-month anniversary of the war, then I guess the end of February is when the war began. And I guess early on I started, I was very upset. My my grandfather was from Brody, which is a Ukrainian city that had very little to do with me being upset, but I realized that I have a little bit of a heritage there. But I was very upset, and I was looking around on YouTube for Ukrainian music and Ukrainian musicians and reading what was going on. And I came across this folk song, which was being sung by a guy on the street in Kyiv, with another guy playing drums. And I was so grabbed by this song. I loved it. Then I started reading the translation of it, which was there, and I realized it was a kind of an anti-war folk song, and even mentioned Moscow as the aggressor, and I thought, oh my gosh, here's an example of this history of the two countries and how it goes back so many hundreds of years. And I don't know, somehow I just thought, I want to be part of this. And so the idea of a cello ensemble kind of percolated, and I started asking around, and there was a lot of interest, and we talked about it in CelloBello staff meetings, and everybody on the website was very excited about doing something in support of Ukraine. So Mike Block is a friend. I met him through Yo-Yo. We all live here in Boston together. And I know that he has a wonderful imagination. He does a lot of crossover stuff. And of course, as a member of Silk Road, I admire the guy. I admire his talent. And I just thought he might be the one to do an arrangement. And he jumped on it. He's been great. And the two of us worked on it together. It's like 98% Mike and a couple of my own ideas thrown in there. And then we found this wonderful grist mill. I don't know if you see the video, that it's a mill that 100 years ago outside of Boston where wheat was produced, and Ukraine is wheat, and we thought, oh my God, that's the perfect place to film this video. And then Mike introduced us to Elena, and I thought it was very important to have a Russian person as part of the video. I thought she's a very important symbol, because despite the brainwashing that goes on in that country, there are Russians everywhere that support Ukraine and understand. So I thought Elena was very important to have. So anyway, that's basically how we put it together. It took quite a while. It took longer than we thought. A couple of Ukrainian cellists said yes and then dropped out. So we just shrunk the numbers. But by the time we got it finished, we realized, oh my gosh, we're only 3 weeks away from Ukrainian Independence Day. What a great chance, to be able to coordinate with Independence Day. And I know hearing Ukrainians speak today, I can't even imagine, just how important this day is to them. So I'm just thrilled that we're part of this. It's a small part, but we're part of it.
And yeah, thank you, Paul. And I want to just add that, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Gleb Sasko was the other Ukrainian cellist on this video, and I understand he's in the mountains or somewhere and wasn't able to join us, but he participated in the video as well from a room somewhere in Kiev. Is that correct?
Yes, he wrote that we had asked everybody to film outside in order to make it visually more compatible with the grist mill. And he wrote and said that he was sorry that he couldn't go outside because of missile strikes.
I'm sorry I didn't do it outside, but it's just because of the Norwegian weather.
That's pretty dangerous also.
Yeah, that's great. And so we're hoping that I don't know if I know that on the site, Paul, we have music of women composers and music of underrepresented people, and you're going to add a Ukrainian list for us of repertoire.
Absolutely. We have a lot of Ukrainian composers in there already, but I think that's a great idea. Let's organize so that we can have actually Ukrainian composers. There's such a great history. I think of Prokofiev. I think he was born in Ukraine. I noticed that the musicians from Kiev today didn't mention him, so I didn't know if there was any sensitivity there or not. They mentioned how Ukrainians became famous, how they were extracted by Russia, and if they lived in Moscow, Russia would claim them as part of their culture. I guess it's a little bit like Picasso in France or something, but Petro, do you know anything about that?
This is endless conversation, about poets and writers and painters and composers. Of course, many of them moved to St. Petersburg or Moscow just to be able to develop career, and to be able to do some stuff they like to do. But I'm really happy we are living in a world when it's so difficult to manipulate history. It's very easy. You just go to Google and you read everything. You get all the answers. Of course, you sometimes get a couple of different opinions.
You have to be careful. There's so much misinformation. History is being written maybe more than ever before.
Yeah, I know, but we are as intelligent people can divide information, and we can read, and the same thing as a propaganda today in a war. It's still kind of I'm not able to understand how the power of Russia gets so much support from Russian people. I know it's a little bit difficult for Elena. And it's difficult the same way for me because I have a lot of Russian friends, whom I respect very well. But I have a lot of Russian friends earlier that I lost forever, And I even have some in Ukraine-born Russian-speaking friends I lost. And this is very difficult time because propaganda. It's a really, really dangerous tool. Mm. And very clever people are using it, and that's when I look at people who are under this propaganda pressure, and I look at people who survived under this propaganda. That's a difference, So I hope all the people read carefully and try to understand. Not watch them. I'm not gonna watch that much TV, And most important message, just get to different sources. Just be able to kind of look at two sides and try to understand that there is this other side of the medal, And we have the same problem as we had 100 years ago. The same problem we had, pressure for culture from Bolsheviks, And this song, which we are playing in the piece first, Червона Калина, its song, I think, is around 100 years old, and it became very popular. For many people, they didn't even know this piece. Ukrainians, I mean, if you were in a little bit folk music, choir music, then you heard. It's same actually phenomenon what happened on Maidan in 2014. It came up one really emotional piece, which is Plenekacha, and this is extremely emotional piece, which one group of singers sung, and then it's like right timing. The same thing what happened as well for you, Paul, with Червона Калина. Just one guy from pop music just came out on street early morning and then started to sing it, and then it was just emotion. Of course, there is a text and there is symbolism in this music, but this emotion which struck everyone, and that's how another guy took it and started to loop it, and then it started to be popular, and then Pink Floyd took it and they started to produce, and then it's just started to move.
And then we took it.
Yes, and then we have it, and then we were able to be part of it,
Yeah,
so it's a lot of symbolism in music.
And just to bring it back, because we have just a couple more minutes, just to this idea of how, as musicians, we don't have to be powerless, although we might feel we're just a small part, but collectively we can make a difference and give voice to people who need to have their voices heard. And I don't know if each of you want to just say one last thing about this project and what we hope to achieve with it. As I said, we're supporting the Ukrainian Classical Musicians Support Funds, and we encourage everyone that's listening to this video to please support this wonderful organization. Does anyone else want to say something about that or add some last thoughts?
I can add just a small thing. I also encourage people to support this fund and help Ukrainian musicians. If you have something against it, just support Ukrainian military, because everyone is fighting for same thing. Yeah, I know even musicians who are struggling, they still supporting Ukrainian military, because everyone knows without winning this war, we are not keeping our culture alive. So support everything you want to support. Support Ukraine. Stay strong and do not be afraid to speak up.
Thank you. Paul, do you want to add anything as the cello?
Sure, I wanted to give other people a chance. So,
Vladimir,
or Elena, do you have?
Well, I think that the folk song we chose is ultimately very heroic, and I think it's very fitting. And I'll be making my donation right after we finish this call. So,
I also made my donation, and good.
I'm also making a donation after the call.
Promise.
So, I guess, well, that's fantastic. So, if we can perhaps call ourselves role models in a sense, we are all donating, but also in another sense, I think we've used our music to try and make a difference. And I would say for musicians everywhere that are watching, just think about the Ukrainian music that you can play, just how you can use your concerts to keep the war and the need for support sort of in the minds of people, so that, as Natasha was just saying, we do have a power, we have a platform, and if we all use it collectively, I think we can actually make enough of a difference to really help.
Great. Thank you all so much, and thank you for your beautiful video. Please continue to share it and spread the word.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you. Slava